Hi, I'm Mark Wybrow and this is the Electronic Cafe, the channel for the lovers of electronic music. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year! Welcome to the Electronic Cafe 2021. I am Andy McNabb, so let's get started. So, welcome back. Both Mark and I hope you all had a great Christmas break. We're itching to get 2021 off to a really hot start. We had an amazing response to the last show where we looked at our top 30 albums of last year with some of the artists and of course you, our amazing subscribers, all chipping in. It was great to see, so thank you so much. I want to do a quick shout out for a company called Todd Alcott Graphics. They're based in the US. They do some of the coolest music posters I've ever seen, where they kind of mix Art Deco or early 50s Americana into some great images with people such as Bowie, Ian Curtis, Talking Heads. I had a problem with the courier with one of the orders I did with them just a while back, and they dealt with it so well. They were just amazing. They turned what could have been a really bad experience into something a lot better. So thank you guys, love the service, I think it's really cool. If you, our subscribers, have some walls that you think need livening up, go check these guys out. They've got everything you need to do just that. Really cool stuff. Say Todd Alcott Graphics, based in the US, great company. We had some great interviews getting lined up in forthcoming shows. Well, you know, Mark and I have been talking about this for some time because we want to give artists a platform to be discovered, which is the whole reason we did this show in the first damn place. So look out for none other than Atlas as our first guest to appear on the EC in 2021, one of our top 30 album artists of, say, 2020. And then in this show, we have Tears for Fears. More hot stuff music for you guys to check out. So what else do you need? Come on, let's dive in. So, as Mark and I said from day one when we put the Electronic Cafe together, in most shows we want to cover a legend or legendary band that's had a massive impact in the post-punk electronic music scene. For me, Tears for Fears are right up there with everyone we've covered so far. I would almost go as far as to say between Orzabal and Smith, they have written and crafted some of the finest songs of our time. Both the guys met as teenagers in Bath. They've been in a couple of bands that were kind of mod revival, new wave based. But over time, the guys started to become more influenced by artists such as Talking Heads, Peter Gabriel, Brian Eno, and when they finally got all those influences into their system and brought out their first album, it didn't disappoint.
As Andy said, Tears for Fears are an English electronic rock band formed in Bath in 1981 by Roland Orzabal and Kurt Smith. They were initially associated with the new wave synthesizer bands of the early 80s and were part of the MTV-driven second British invasion of the US. The name Tears for Fears was inspired by the primal therapy theories developed by the American psychologist Arthur Janoff, which gained tremendous publicity after John Lennon became Janoff's patient in 1970. Tears for Fears have recorded just 6 albums in 40 years.
So the band had their first taste of success with their third single, Mad World, which reached number 3 in November '82. I remember seeing their appearance on that song on Top of the Pops actually. Their first album, The Hurting, was released in March '83. For this album, they had a keyboard and composer join them called Ian Stanley and drummer Manny Elias. Both were then considered full band members, although Smith and Orzabal were still essentially the frontmen and the public faces of the band. The album, produced by Chris Hughes and Ross Cullum, showcased guitar and synth-based songs with lyrics reflecting Orzabal's bitter childhood and his interest in primal therapy. The album was a big success and had a lengthy chart run, 65 weeks in the UK, where it reached number 1 and platinum status. Not bad for a first album, right? It also reached the top 20 in several other countries and yielded the international hit singles Mad World, which was a top 5 hit in South Africa, Change, a top 40 hit in Australia, Canada, Ireland, Israel, Italy, the Netherlands, Poland and South Africa. Their first single to reach the US Billboard, also to reach the Billboard 100 in the US, and a re-recorded version of Pale Shelter. All 3 of these singles reached the top 5 in the UK. And then towards the end of '83, the band released a new, slightly more experimental single called The Way You Are, intended as a stopgap while they worked on their second album. But make no mistake, this was one hell of an entrance and a way for Tears for Fears to say hello world. And what was to follow was certainly not a disappointment either. Mark, over to you, buddy.
So yeah, the band's first album was The Hurting, released in 1983. As mentioned, much of the band's early work was influenced by the primal scream therapy theories developed by the American psychologist Arthur Janoff, and much of their early work references this, with songs like The Hurting, Suffer the Children, Start of the Breakdown, Watch Me Bleed. Even in the lyrics of Mad World, is the famous line, "The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had," suggesting that dreams of an intense experience such as death are the best things at releasing tension. Andy mentioned that the album was produced by Chris Hughes. This is the same Chris Merrick Hughes who used to be the drummer for Adam and the Ants.
To ask you how you feel, is this what you deserve when it's all too late? It's all too late. Change. You can change. Have my head, I want to drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, 'cause I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very...
Songs from the Big Chair is the second studio album released in 1985. The album title again has dark connotations. Songs from the Big Chair is derived from the 1976 television film Sybil, about a woman with a multiple personality disorder who only feels safe when she is sitting in her analyst's big chair. Again produced by Chris Hughes, and this time assisted by Dave Bascom as engineer, who has worked with Depeche Mode, ABC, Human League, Peter Gabriel, Erasure and Goldfrapp, to name just a few, giving the album the huge production sound. This album is the reason that Depeche Mode asked Dave Bascom to produce their Music for the Masses album, and you can see why. Will Gregory also plays on the album, the songwriter, producer famous for his work with Goldfrapp in later years. Songs from the Big Chair saw them reach out to a far bigger audience, and the band said that they made a conscious effort to bridge the ocean between here and America, and this is the album that exploded worldwide for Tears for Fears, with the hit singles Mother Talk, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Head Over Heels, I Believe and the stadium anthem Shout. This album is a huge, bombastic, dreamy, anthemic, timeless pop classic, one of the finest statements of the 80s decade, and is included in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. Everybody knows this album, don't they? If you don't, do go check it out. It still remains their best-selling album to date.
I'm lost in admiration. conversation. Could I need you this much? Oh, you're wasting my time. You're just wasting time. Something happens and I'm head over heels. I never find out till I'm head over heels. Something happens and I'm head over. Let it all out. These are the things I can do without. Come on, I'm talking to you. Come on.
So it was 1989 before the group released their third album, The Seeds of Love, on which Ian Stanley appeared for the last time as a member of Tears for Fears. The reported production cost alone of this album was over £1 million. It was largely written by Orzabal along with a keyboardist called Nicky Holland, who had toured with them way back in '85 on the Big Chair tour. They were moving from various studios and using various sets of producers over many months, but the band then just decided to scrap it all and take the reins themselves with the assistance of an engineer called Dave Bascom. Much of the material was just recorded in jam sessions and then just edited down. The length of the production impacted on the band's management company. They just financially overextended themselves in other business matters, and they were just hoping for an early release to pay off their debts. But this album still retains the band's massive sound, but it started to showcase increasing influences from jazz, blues, and obviously on the title track, The Seeds of Love, how impacted they were by the Beatles. The second single from the album, Woman in Chains, I mean, for me, one of the greatest songs you'll ever hear. Was a top 40 hit across most of Europe and Canada. Phil Collins played the drums in it. Aletta Adams shared the vocals, who was someone that Orzabal would later go on to guide to a successful solo career. The album was just a massive worldwide success, entering the UK at #1, hitting the top 10 in the US and so many other countries, going to sell millions of copies internationally. They set out on an extensive tour, Seeds of Love, which was sponsored by Philips to help recover some of the massive debt incurred in making this album. The band show in Santa Barbara, California in May, I believe, 1990, would be captured on the Going to California Live video. And then there was a couple of other singles, Advice for the Young at Heart, Famous Last Words, that delivered moderate chart success. But make no mistake, the standard of each of these three albums today was up there with anything else you'll hear or ever hear. Just incredible song craftsmanship. The way they're orchestrated, composed, written, just unbelievable.
So yeah, The Seeds of Love was the third album released in 1989. It took 2 years to record and was a massive international success, retaining the band's epic sound while incorporating influences ranging from jazz and soul to Beatlesque pop. Despite its success, it would be the last album that the band members Roland Orzabal and Kurt Smith would work on together for over a decade. Frustrations during the making of the album had also given rise to tensions between Orzabal and Smith, with Orzabal having become something of an intricate perfectionist and Smith preoccupied with living a jet-set lifestyle rather than focusing on the band and the music. The brilliant soulful gospel Aletta Adams, who contributes backing vocals and duets on this album, was discovered when the touring Tears for Fears party stayed in the hotel in Kansas where she had a hotel residency. Roland Orzabal and Kurt Smith saw a performance during that tour and they persuaded her to contribute piano, keyboards and vocals to their next album. In my opinion, this is a masterpiece of an album and well worth checking out.
Squeaky clean, smashing the hope of democracy is the headline. Says you're free to choose. There's egg on your face and mud on your shoes. One of these days they're gonna call it the blues. Yeah. So anything is possible. Seeds of love. Well, I feel deep in your heart now. It's time.
But could they better this? Well, let's see what Mark has to say to find out. Over to you, buddy.
Elemental is the fourth studio album released in 1993. Elemental was the first new Tears for Fears album in 4 years, following 1989's The Seeds of Love. However, despite being released under the Tears for Fears moniker, it is essentially a solo effort by Roland Orzabal, as Kurt Smith had left the band in 1991. I think this is a really strong album, but reviews were mixed and it didn't reach the heights of the previous two albums. It includes the hit single Break It Down Again, but the other strong tracks include Cold, Elemental, Power and Fish Out of Water. Fish Out of Water is an interesting song and my favourite song on the album. It is clearly Orzabal saying, I can do it all alone, which he minimises Kurt Smith's part in the Tears for Fears legacy. Lines like, with all your high class friends, you think you had it made. The only thing you made was that tanned look on your face. With all your cigarettes and fancy cars, you ain't a clue of who or what you are. It's a powerful song and quite damning. You need to listen to it. There's not really a poor song in my opinion. Roland Orzabal's musicianship and vocals are stunning. I think the album is an underrated masterpiece personally. My only wish would be that they reissued it on vinyl. If you've not heard this album, do go check it out for sure. It's well worth a listen and a great Tears for Fears record. Raúl and the Kings of Spain is the fifth studio album released in 1995, and like the previous album Elemental, it is essentially a solo record by Roland Orzabal, neither album being made with the involvement of Kurt Smith, who had left the band at this time. The album, according to Orzabal, has a recurring theme of relationships and it delves into his own Spanish heritage. Raúl was originally Orzabal's first name given to him at birth before being anglicised by his parents to Roland. Orzabal later gave the name Raúl to his son born in 1991. Raúl and the Kings of Spain provides a personal journey through the life of Roland Orzabal, documenting the loss of his father with powerful songs and rich melodies. The album, in sound, sounds pretty similar to the previous album Elemental, but again it got mixed or poor reviews from critics, accusing Orzabal of treading water. But again, me and Andy really like this album. It sounds great, production is flawless, with great songs, a strong album showcasing Orzabal's talents. The album features a reunion with Aletta Adams from the Seeds of Love album, and she duets with Orzabal on the track Me and My Big Ideas. Also worth mentioning is the utterly brilliant Gal Ann Dorsey on bass, who went on to be David Bowie's bass player for over 20 years. Orzabal is once again on fantastic form on this album, and it has some brilliant tracks. Raúl and the Kings of Spain, Secrets, God's Mistake, Sorry, Me and My Big Ideas. I could go on, but I don't take my word for it, go check it out for yourself. After this album, Orzabal dispensed with the Tears for Fears name, and he released an album, Tomcat Screaming Outside, in 2001 under his own name. Again, I would love this album to be reissued on vinyl. Give it a listen, it's a really strong and good album.
When the seventh son of the seventh son comes along and breaks the chain, Raúl and the Kings of Spain, making it plain, making it plain. Once, even twice, he said God does not play.
So, due to record company mergers and acquisitions in the late 90s, Tears for Fears' back catalogue was eventually placed into the Universal Music fold. And then after undertaking some production work and some songwriting for the Icelandic singer-songwriter Emiliana Torini on her 1999 album Love in the Time of Science, Orzabal re-teamed with Alan Griffiths and released their album Tomcat Screaming Outside, released on Eagle Records and as a solo project under his own name. Whereas Tears for Fears had become more guitar-based, Tomcat Screaming Outside showcased a predominantly electronic style, and a really good album. I know Mark's mentioned it a couple of times on our Facebook page.
Tomcat Screaming Outside is the first and only solo album from Roland Orzabal, released in 2001, although he had effectively made the last two albums under the Tears for Fears name on his own in the 90s following the departure of Kurt Smith, so really it was just the first recording to be released under his own name. The album didn't chart, but it earned some critical acclaim for its clever melding of pop songs with drum and bass and ambient techno and trip-hop textures. One editorial reviewer said, "Solo album or not, Tomcat Screaming Outside is the best Tears for Fears album in a decade." I love this album and it contains some great songs, and I would urge you to look for it and get it and check it out. It's such an incredibly creative and well mixed record. The album was released in the US on September the 11th, 2001, the same day as the United States experienced its worst ever terrorist attack on the World Trade Center in New York, and subsequently it drew little notice outside of Tears for Fears' core fan base. It is a hidden gem and well worth digging out.
Low life, low life. You can have it all, but not enough at all. You can make this steel go underground.
The boys met up in 2000 and agreed to make another album, and finally Everybody Loves a Happy Ending was released in the UK and Europe in March 2005 on Gut Records. Shortly after the comeback single Closest Thing to Heaven became the first Tears for Fears UK Top 40 hit in over a decade.
After reuniting after their long-standing feud, in 2000 Orzabal reactivated the band name Tears for Fears for the sixth album, aptly titled Everybody Loves a Happy Ending, and he worked again with Kurt Smith. The film Donnie Darko in 2001 had a left-field version of Mad World by Gary Jules in the soundtrack, which topped the charts in many countries, and with a renewed interest in the group, found the boys ready and willing to set their differences aside and give it another go. Everybody Loves a Happy Ending is the sixth and most recent studio album released in 2004, 9 years after the previous Tears for Fears record, Rael and the Kings of Spain in 1995, and was the first album to feature Kurt Smith since 1989, The Seeds of Love. Tears for Fears have always dabbled in the Beatlesque, and they do so here once again to a greater degree. All of the classic Tears for Fears elements are here: great production, big hooks, soaring harmonies, and it contains the great singles Closest Thing to Heaven and Secret World. Lovers of intricately arranged and artfully executed pop music will find themselves delightfully consumed by the album. Another chapter from this enigmatic group. Strangely, even though the band are still together and still regularly playing live, apart from a couple of new songs on the last Greatest Hits compilation, they haven't put out a new album of material in nearly 20 years, something that I find strange given Orzabal's productivity throughout the 80s and 90s. I hold my hands up and I admit that this is my least played Tears for Fears record, and I honestly don't know why. It is a great album. Give it a listen and tell us what you think.
Well, we got together again because we both really wanted to revisit the 80s.
No, we didn't.
Everybody Loves a Happy Ending was there before Kurt and I decided to get back together again, before we actually made a note of any new music. And I think that, it was my way of communicating to Kurt that this was going to be okay. That this...
You're telling me you lied.
Yeah.
While the world is sinking 10,000 miles into the atmosphere, my body shakes. Is there a welcome
In February 2020, the band's Songs from the Big Chair was the subject of an episode of the BBC series Classic Albums. Just shows you how revered they have now become, featuring new interviews of the band and all key personnel from the album's creation and subsequent success. To coincide with the album's 35th anniversary, the 2014 deluxe box set was reissued by Universal, as well as a new 12-inch vinyl picture disc of the album. Also, in November of 2020, Everybody Loves a Happy Ending was issued via a number of streaming services after Orzabal Smith signed with Irving and Jeff Azoff's Full Stop Management Company. The duo also said that the album that they was due to be released has been scrapped, with the duo starting off recording again in New York for an album due out this year, hopefully. So fingers crossed. I hope we get another blistering album of brilliance. You know, in summary, I've seen Tears for Fears twice. I saw them once when it was just Orzabal, when he had his session musicians, arguably producing some of their best material with Elemental and Raúl and the Kings of Spain. But I remember I took some clients to see them play after a day of horse racing at Newmarket. And after about an hour into an amazing set, one of my clients turned to me and said, "They've got to be finishing soon. They're going to be running out of hits." An hour later, he turned around to me and said, "Oh my God, I just forgotten how many amazing songs they've written." I think the Tears for Fears legacy is incredible. Boys, let's have one more encore, please. So welcome to our first Hot Stuff section of 2021, where Mark and I look at some really cool albums we think should be gracing your turntables and making your ears happy with the stuff that you're going to be listening to. I'm loving the two albums that I'm going to talk about now that came out towards the back end of 2020, and thank God they did, otherwise that top 30 show would have been an even bigger headache to decide what albums I'm going to put in there. First up, and I'll do my best to pronounce it properly because they're an Italian duo, Il Quadro di Triosi. I apologise to my friends such as Enrico, Walter, Nicola, Linda, Pierluigi, Gabriele and Rocco, and all my other Italian friends in Milan for the bad pronunciation. But Il Quadro di Triosi is a collaboration between the electronic artists Eva Geist and Donato Dozzi. They somehow do an amazing job of conjuring up images of the head-spinning beauty of Italy's architecture and the effortless elegance of its nightlife. They're both excellent producers in their own right, behind everything from wobbly psychedelia to body slamming acid to heady ambient techno, but nothing in those catalogues had previously suggested they might be capable of producing synth pop as lush and as poised as this album. The opener, Il Giudizio, is a song shot through an irresistible twinge of melancholy and glamour. It's like sorrow between silk sheets. It's brilliant. Eva's vocals in particular are awesome. She sings the way Venice must surely look after a late night heartbreak. All gloriously dusted beauty and elegant sighs. On Real, her voice, well, it just soars to the rafters like a startled bird. On Stefrete Qui, it is shot for attention. On Non Ricordi, it drips with erotic charge. Scaramucci's production, meanwhile, draws on Italy's small but perfectly formed history of Italian disco and synth pop. There's really dreamy synth lines on here, and discerning machine rhythms. There's like a graceful tick. It's like an enigmatic stranger's tantalising offer to dance, rather than just that relentless mechanical pester of contemporary dance music. There's a shadow of Ennio Morricone's exquisitely textured soundtrack work that haunts this album's arrangements, adding real meat to the skeleton of Scaramucci's electronic skeleton, as it were. I think Il Quadro di Troisi's gloriously evocative touch leaves them in pretty elevated company, actually. If Air represent a guidebook glimpse of France, swapping mundane reality for the ornate grandeur of their native Versailles, then Il Quadro di Troisi do the same for Italy. Their florid synth adventures painting pictures of a country so impossibly debonair it could only exist in our dreams. If you mix the School of Seven Bells in Kate Bush into one music force, this is probably what you might get. That's right, near synth pop perfection. Very, very highly recommended. Available on vinyl from Bandcamp. Go check this out. I love it.
Mi fermo e ridono.
So my second album that I'm going to recommend, I kind of discovered by complete accident going through albums on Bandcamp. It's called Welcome to Moon 1. It's a raw, quirky, emotional and hugely overlooked debut album from Ian Curtis and Johannes Albert. It was out in 2017 originally, but it's just been reissued last year. They're a Berlin-based duo. They've put a ton of love into making this album a true listening experience without sacrificing their roots in house music. The album was originally titled Industry and Zärtlichkeit. I'll try and do that pronunciation justice and probably have failed miserably, but hey, I can only do my best. It achieves what is claimed in its title. It's just a fusion of seemingly disparate elements. The rough and the smooth, dirty beats and soothing harmonies, bizarre sounds and comforting chords. The title track is a fine example of this perfectly dosed blend with its detuned strings that glide over a crispy electro beat and an infectious melody which would make even Kraftwerk proud. It's very original yet so familiar. There's tinges of yellow and air abound. I think all in all, Moon feels like, or Moon 1 feels like drinking fresh orange juice with a warm sun on your face. And let's face it, we could all do with a bit of that right now in our lives. Again, on Bandcamp, on vinyl, get it now. Brilliant album. So that's our first show of 2021. Hope you enjoyed our trip through the Tears for Fears story, and hope you enjoy the new Hot Stuff music that Mark and I recommended. Let us know. We want to know if you're liking what we're putting forward. As I say, we mentioned the interview we've got coming up with Atlas later on early in the year. Got a few other people we're talking to right now to get signed up to join us to make this show bigger and better, more informative, more enjoyable. If you haven't subscribed, please push that subscribe button. It means so much to Mark and I, and we're just going to keep pushing on to make this show as good as we possibly can. If you find any new music, share it with us on our Facebook page. Love to hear it. So again, hope you all have an amazing 2021, and Mark and I will do all we can to make sure this show just keeps getting bigger and better. Stay safe for now and take care. See you next time on the Electronic Cafe. Bye bye.
Thanks for watching the Electronic Cafe. Clearly, many of you are lovers of electronic music and are interested in our reviews and what we have to say, and for that we are really grateful. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this episode, and please also don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.